Hi, this is Christopher Flakus with the beautiful Alexandra McInerney
McInerney.
Flakus.
Anyway, to everybody out there in cyberspace, we're here discussing our book picks for the holiday season. What we'll be reading, what we'll be flipping pages through while we are lying on the beaches of sunny and scary El Salvador, because there's no beach in San Salvador proper. It's about 35 minutes away. But we are taking our share of reading material because as writers, you always got to be reading.
A graphic novel. I was never really into comic books, especially not Marvel superhero stuff, but I loved graphic novels. My folks, God bless you, Dad, Mom, they didn't know that these were really mature themed, well written, and often incredibly violent and beautifully illustrated and written. Though not my favorite, I'd have to say that of the great comic books that came around this time, Preacher and The Invisibles would probably be the ones that stuck with me most. The Sandman, I don't even want to talk about. Neil Gaiman, you broke my heart. You broke so many hearts. Read Tanith Lee. Transmetropolitan breaks my heart for different reasons because it's the story of a great superhero and the cyberpunk future. And that superhero is Spider Jerusalem, who is basically just a cyberpunk version of Hunter S. Thompson, an unyielding crusader in the war for truth. No superpowers. No superpowers. In fact, he's kind of a rotten bastard with some illegitimate children here or there. A few of them horrifically mutated, so they have no heads. And he does a lot of drugs and stuff. But he is out against the worst foe the world has ever seen before, the Smiler. We always feared him, that he would come to American politics.
So for my first pick, I'm halfway into it more or less, a little bit less. You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White, and it's about a trans person living in Appalachia. And uh, it's a future slash present, not unlike ours, where trans people are being persecuted, where a lot of the things that we're seeing now actually exist. Immigrants are also being persecuted, etc. But marginalized people live in these hives that are controlled by these worm-like entities that fester and eat things that try to attack the members of the hive. So in this case, Craven is the main character. They are a trans person. They are also pregnant, and they are living and interacting with this hive entity. And it's kind of a really interesting take on how a trans person navigates in this dystopian landscape, not unlike ours, while also like trying to, I guess, live in their corporality as it changes, integrating with this like hive control system, which is, I have to say, the hive control system, reading about the worms and the way they manifest and decay the bodies that they're fed, is really unnerving and really gross. But I think it also speaks to perhaps biases that exist within us, the reader. It's a fascinating and challenging read, and I'm only halfway into it, so I can't speak a lot about it, but I'm enjoying what's being done.
My favorite writer, Roberto Bolaño, who said that to write, so really the best writing advice is to read, and to read eccentrically, and you'll learn more from a bad book often than a good book. Everyone wants to read and aspire for the greats, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Dennis Johnson used to say, aspire to be Shakespeare, aspire to be Homer. You're never going to make it, but yet you should aim as high as possible. And I think there's something to be said to that. But we've been having a lot of fun lately poking at things that didn't quite work or almost did. And it's like, well, that's interesting. Why? Maybe it was just a matter of 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If they'd cut 20, 30 minutes, or if a book had maybe been a chapter less. Sometimes that's the difference. And it's really interesting because one thing you lose when you become a real writer, I think, and you see the mechanics of writing everywhere you look, is that suspension of disbelief. If I don't 100% fully let myself go like I used to, I still get swept away. Oh, I'm really emotional. I cry in movies like a little baby. but I also am aware that it's because of a certain formula and beats were hit. So, with that being known, the writing advice of good artists borrow, great artists steal, it makes a little more sense because everything's been done. It's just adding our own twist and our own take. That's what we have that no one else has. It's the book that I'm taking with me that I'm mainly digging into is by the author who, not since William S. Burroughs at 19 as an author, shaken my world so much. I mean, reading Naked Lunch the first time was like dropping acid the first time. But at 40, this was, and I discovered him, maybe I was 37 or something. It's been a few years since I read Dahlgren, his most famous novel, the Ulysses of science fiction. But Trouble on Triton, it's got a great foreword by Kathy Acker. Speaking of William Burroughs, she's been known as a great friend of his and called Kathy Acker's been called the female Burroughs, but I think that's just such a derivative way of looking at someone whose own work is radical and really broke down language in a way that no one had done before. But Samuel Delany came close, and I love it. It's Trouble on Triton, an ambiguous heterotopia. Samuel Delany had two famous aunts for famous poets from the Harlem Renaissance, and he himself was a gay man of color in New York City and was a science fiction author who lived married to a woman for 25 years. So really a lot of contradictions, and yet was totally open with her, was not hiding who he was. And I think they eventually split, and he's been with the same man since, and she, I think, has been with the same woman since. So all these ideas of sexual politics and gender and stuff, the idea of Afrofuturism, they were all put out there by Samuel R. Delany. And this book came out in 1976. Okay, so before woke was even a term that was being used, before Trump or any of the madness that we've undergone, or identity politics and cancel culture, people were considering questions of sex and race in speculative fiction far before it had reached the imaginations of this latest batch, which seems so identity obsessed that they lost out on the real fun of playing with gender and sex.
My next pick for winter read, The Lover by Marguerite Duras. And I guess, so I've had a lot of bad luck with this book. I would always buy the book and I would always lose it. Like 2 days later, gone. I would put it in my backpack, gone. I would go like on a trip, I would leave it kind of like the Marcel Schwab book. I would just leave it on the side of
Did you get that again?
Yeah, I did get it again. But it was just one of those like cursed books, and the last time I ordered it, it was back ordered for 6 months. I wasn't getting it. It was just like, maybe I'm just not supposed to read this. So I was really excited when it finally came in the mail, and I'm finally going to read it. So my understanding is the story. Yeah, it's a story about a girl.
It's autobiographical.
It's her story. Yeah, it's autobiographical. It's a story about her childhood and how she falls in love with a Chinese man, and it's during the fall of
the thing is, like, it made it so controversial. I don't want to give anything away, but you'll see in the first few pages. So no spoilers. It's just very honest about in lust, and she's totally underage, and he's definitely not unaware of this fact, and it is just very French.
Is really interesting to me, and I'm looking forward to reading it.
It's a great book.
And
she's a great filmmaker.
Any lessons that I can, exactly. Any lessons that I can take from her writing. I love the writing she did for Hiroshima and Mon Amour.
Story. Bruce Sterling, and not just in his really excellent cyberpunk work, his early mechanist work. If you've seen Love, Sex, and Robots, that has a little short based on his short story Spider Rose, which is considered by many to be the first cyberpunk story. And part of the reason I've been reading this and the Sprawl trilogy's author, William Gibson, is his collection of short stories right around the time of Neuromancer and Count Zero and those famous books that popularized the genre. I'm returning to them because I am writing this and Transmetropolitan as well, the comic book. what they have in common is the punk in cyberpunk and in Latino punk is rebellion, insouciance. But these days, the punk in cyberpunk or in Latino punk needs to mean kindness as well, because it's against the status quo. And the status quo right now, the regime in charge, the, the powers that be are brutish, ugly, unkind imbeciles. So to be intelligent and loving is to be everything that they're not and against the system. And we'll see you next time, folks.